Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our lecture videos for Math 141. This is going to be our second lecture on voting theory, and we'll talk about two methods of voting, the method of pairwise comparisons, and then the plurality with elimination method. So let's get into it. So the next voting method that we take is going to take a little more efforts to calculate the winner, perhaps versus the plurality method or the board account method, but hopefully the idea is straightforward. So in the method of pairwise comparisons, we are going to calculate the winner of an election using the following approach. So the first stage is called the pairing stage right here. So pairing. In the pairing stage, what you're going to do is an election with perhaps more than two candidates is you're going to find all possible pairs of candidates in an election. We'll practice doing this in two different examples below. But if you have three candidates, you want to find all pairs in the pool of candidates and so on. The next stage, what you want to do using the method of pairwise comparisons is that for each pair, you're going to want to find which candidate is the preferred candidate in that pair. So how can we do that? The way to do that is to use the preference schedule. A preference schedule doesn't just tell us, this is who I think is first place, second place, or third place. It tells us what each voter, how they compare each subset of candidates in a head-to-head against each other, right? So if a voter has one candidate in second place and a different candidate in fourth place, they prefer the second place candidate to the fourth place candidate. So what you do is you use the preference schedule and then going one column at a time in the preference schedule, count how many voters rank one candidate over the other. And you're going to do this for each pair. So for each pair, find out how many voters rank one candidate over the other. Add up all the results for that pair. Again, we'll practice below. And then you're going to see which candidate of that pair is preferred by all of the voters. Once you've done that, you've reached the assigning points stage of the method of pairwise comparison. So for each pair, again, the candidate with the most votes will receive 1 point. The candidate who gets the least amount of votes is going to get 0 points. In the event of a tie, which sometimes happen, each candidate will get a half point. Once we have assigned all of the points to each candidate, to each pair, you'll add up the total points earned by each candidate. And in the method of pairwise comparisons, the winner is determined by who has the most total points, and the complete ranking will be determined in the descending order of points, just as usual for our voting methods. So here's one example right here. What we want to do in this example is calculate the winner and full ranking of the ice cream election that we talked about in the previous video using the method of pairwise comparisons. As a reminder, I put the preference schedule for this election right here. M stands for mint chocolate chip, V stands for vanilla, and C stands for salted caramel. So we have each possible preference that we got and the total number of voters right here. So why don't you take a minute and just try to work out this problem. So pause the video and try to figure out who the winner and the complete ranking of the election are using the method of pairwise comparisons. All right, so hopefully you paused and you've done some work. Maybe you have some questions, but let's talk about how to solve this problem very quickly. So I think the hardest part in the method of pairwise comparisons, it's not counting who gets more votes than the others, it's figuring out all possible pairs of candidates in the election. So let me unveil the results right here. And we'll practice doing this, but the first thing that you always want to do using this method is to find all possible pairs. Now, in an election with three candidates, there's always going to be three different pairs right here. So the three possible pairs of candidates in this election are M versus V, mint chocolate chip versus vanilla, mint chocolate chip versus salted caramel, and vanilla versus salted caramel. That is all of the pairs right there. Once we have all of the pairs, again, the idea is fairly straightforward. So we want to first consider the head-to-head matchup between mint chocolate chip and vanilla. And so if you go through the preference schedule right here, you'll see, okay, these 24 people prefer mint chocolate chip, these 20 people prefer vanilla, these 18 people prefer vanilla, these 11 people prefer vanilla, and then the rest of these voters, these 18 and these 9 prefer mint chocolate chip over vanilla. If you add all the numbers up, it's very close. Mint chocolate chip is preferred by 51 and vanilla is preferred by 49. So that means M wins this comparison and earns 1 point in the method of pairwise comparisons. Next, what you do is you study the pair M versus C. And if you go through all of the columns and you tabulate all of the people who prefer M to mint chocolate chip to salted caramel, you'll see that mint chocolate chip is preferred by 60 people and salted caramel is preferred by 40 people. So that means that mint chocolate chip wins in this pairwise comparison and gets 1 point. Notice that the sum of the votes is always equal to the total voters, which is 100 in this election. So that's a sanity check if you know the total voters that you've done your comparison, that you've counted everything properly. So M gets 1 point in this. And then the last pair we consider is vanilla versus salted caramel. In this case, we can count just by going through vanilla is preferred here, vanilla is preferred in this column, vanilla is preferred in this column. We see that vanilla is preferred by 62 of the voters and salted caramel is preferred by 38 of the voters. So that means vanilla wins in this head-to-head and gets 1 point. These are all of the pairs. So now we just want to add up all of the points that we've awarded. So it looks like M got 2 points right here. V got 1 point and salted caramel C did not get any points. So that means the complete ranking of the candidates is mint chocolate chip, vanilla, and then salted caramel. So mint chocolate chip is the winner using the method of pairwise comparisons. So that is roughly how it works. Like I said, maybe the trickier thing to do is figure out, well, what are all of the pairs? Hopefully with that little bit of practice, maybe we're feeling a little bit more confident in our abilities. So let's go over a practice problem right here. So this is, again, another example from the previous lecture video. And in this in-class activity, what we'd like to do is calculate the winner and complete ranking of the candidates in the following election. We have 4 candidates, A, B, C, and D. And this time we are going to use, again, the method of pairwise comparisons. So this is the preference schedule for the election. It will tell you everything that you need to know. So remember, you want to find all possible pairs. Then you want to see who wins in the head-to-head matchup. And then you want to assign points and then figure out who the winner is and the complete ranking afterwards. I'm going to pause so that you can all take a chance to solve this problem. But I want to say in this example, as a hint, there are 6 possible pairs. So if you're having trouble finding all the pairs, just know that there's 6 of them. So once you've achieved 6 different pairs, then you'd be done. So that's my hint. We'll talk about the solution after taking a little pause. All right, everyone. I hope that you found some success in finding all 6 of those pairs. Hopefully you at least found a few of them. But the important thing is that, again, we find all the possible pairs. And the solution to that is that all of the pairs are given as follows. We have the pair A versus B, then we go down, A versus C, and then A versus D. So what I like to do when I find all of the pairs is I pick one candidate and I want to find all possible pairs that include that one candidate. So in this case, AB, A versus C, and A versus D. Those are all of the pairs that include A. Now that I know all of the pairs that include A, I'm just going to go down my list. Next is B, and I want to find all pairs that include B that I haven't already counted before. So I already counted A versus B, so I get B versus C right here, and I do B versus D right here. So those are all the remaining pairs that include B and D. And then finally, we have to find all pairs that include C that haven't been counted before. The last one left is C versus D. So those are all 6 possible pairs right there. So again, that is the trickiest part. And then once we have that, it's not so difficult to tabulate the winner in each of these head-to-heads. I'll go through one of them and just discuss the rest of the results right here. So if I want to do the method of pairwise comparisons between A and B, what I'm going to do is go in for each column in order, starting from the left. We have the following vote totals right here. So if I look at this column, 27 voters prefer B to A. B is 3rd place, A is 4th place. So 27 votes for B. And then going to the next one, 15 voters prefer A to B. So I have 15 votes for A. In this 3rd column, I have 11 preferring B to A. B is in 1st place, A is in 3rd. In this column, I have 9 preferring A. So these 9 voters prefer A to B. These 8 voters right here prefer B to A. And this last voter right here also prefers B to A. If I sum up the total of all of these votes coming from each of the column, I end up with a total of 47 voters preferring B and 24 voters preferring A. So B has a majority in this case. Majority, I think, is given by 37. So B ends up getting 1 point. If we do this procedure for all remaining pairs, we get B gets 1 point, A gets a point, A is preferred to C, D is preferred to A, B is preferred to C, D is preferred to B, and D is also preferred to candidate C. So summing everything up, D wins in these 3 pairwise comparisons, B wins in these top 2 pairwise comparisons, and A wins in this 1 pairwise comparison. So D has 3 points, so that means they are the winning candidate, and the complete ranking is given by D, B, who got 2 points, A got 1 point, and then C is in last place with 0 points. So that is how we can calculate the winner using pairwise comparison. Again, it's a little bit difficult to perhaps find the pairs. Hopefully everything else, if not maybe a little tedious, ends up being straightforward. As a sanity check and exercises in this class, in this set of lectures, I will never have you consider elections with more than 5 candidates. So as a sanity check, the number of pairs in an election with n candidates is given by the following things right here. So in elections with 3 candidates, there's 3 total pairs. In elections with 4 candidates, there's 6 total pairs. And in elections with 5 candidates, there are 10 total pairs. So if you just use this as your sort of cheat sheet and your sanity check, hopefully that will help you keep things straight. Okay, let's move on to our last voting method, the plurality with elimination method. Sometimes in US politics, jurisdictions require a candidate to receive a majority of votes to be declared a winner. So we might have encountered this. This might require multiple elections if a candidate does not receive a majority in the initial election. And often newspapers will call this a runoff election. So having elections is very expensive. It's time consuming. It requires a lot of labor by a lot of people. So we want to study a slight variant of this sort of runoff election. And it's going to be called the plurality with elimination method. If you listen to the news, you might know this as instant runoff voting, or perhaps ranked choice voting, depending on where you're from. To keep things simple, let's agree to use the vocabulary plurality with elimination. Here's how the plurality with elimination is going to end up working. The main idea is we want to use the plurality method, but we want to make sure our winner is going to have a majority of the votes. So our strategy is going to be, if there is no majority winner, we want to kick out the last place winner and keep on doing that until we do have a majority winner. So let's go into details. In round 1 of a plurality with elimination election, what we're going to do is use the preference schedule for the election to calculate the number of first place votes for each candidate. It's very simple. We just treat it like the plurality method at the start, right? The name is plurality with elimination. So we're always starting plurality, and then we see if we have to eliminate. So if there is a candidate with the majority, then that candidate is declared the winner and the election is concluded. We don't have to do any elimination after round 1 in that case. The complete ranking is going to be determined by the number of first place votes. So if a candidate has a majority of first place votes, the plurality with elimination method is no different than the regular plurality method. Things are more interesting if no candidate has a majority. And in that case, we do the following. We'll find the candidate with the fewest first place votes. If there is a tie, we'll eliminate all candidates with the fewest first place votes. We'll eliminate that candidate from the preference schedule. Once we eliminate that candidate, we'll transfer the first place votes for these candidates to the next eligible candidate using the preference schedule. So if I voted for an eliminated candidate as my first preference in my preference ballots and they get eliminated, then my second place candidate will be bumped up and receive my first place vote. So this is kind of the idea of the ranked choice voting. All right. So here's what we do in round 2. Again, if needed. What we'll do after eliminating the candidates with the fewest first place votes is that we will recount the first place votes with the eliminated candidates removed. Again, if I voted for a candidate first place, my second choice votes now becomes my first place vote. Now at this point, if a candidate has a majority, then that candidate is declared the winner and the election is concluded. So the complete ranking of the rest of the candidates is determined by the number of first place votes. The candidates who are eliminated, those are going to be in last place using whatever tiebreaker that we decide. It may happen that we need multiple rounds in the plurality with elimination method to achieve a majority. So if no candidate has a majority, what we're going to do is we'll, again, find the candidates with the fewest first place votes. We'll eliminate the candidates from the preference schedule. We'll transfer the first place votes for these candidates onto the next eligible candidate using the preference schedule. And then future rounds if needed. This is a procedure that we can repeat and repeat and repeat until a candidate has a majority of the votes. We will recount the first place votes with the eliminated candidates removed, and we will repeat as necessary, eliminating last place candidates until one candidate achieves a majority of the votes. So that roughly right there, you can pause right here if you want to read this more, is how the plurality with elimination method will work. Okay, so plurality with elimination is kind of a very politically hot topic, and I just wanted to highlight that this happened recently in Alaska Senate election. So in Alaska, there was an open Senate seat, and what happened was there were four in Alaska. You choose between four candidates, and they use plurality with elimination. So voters ranked their four candidates in order of preference. All right, so this election featured four candidates initially, but one of the candidates was removed for some reason that evades me right now. So what happened in the first round is, I guess, they allowed write-ins for the fourth person's vote. So in round one, what they did is they tabulated all the votes. We had a candidate, Peltola right here, who had this many first place votes, 74,000, a candidate Begich who had 52,000 votes. We had a bunch of write-in candidates, and we had Palin who had 58,000 votes. So between all of these candidates and the write-ins, what ended up happening is that no candidate achieved a majority of the votes. So what happens at this stage is that we remove the candidate with the fewest amount of votes. So that qualifies as our write-in candidates. And we move on to the next stage. So at this stage, there are only three candidates, Peltola, Begich, and Palin. And we ask ourselves, did one of these candidates achieve a majority? So 75,761 votes is not a majority. So we looked right here, Peltola had this many votes, 75,000, Begich had 53,000, and Palin had slightly more with 58,000. So at this stage, no candidate has achieved a majority. So we are going to eliminate the candidate with the fewest amount of first place votes. So that means we eliminate Begich. Now, for all of the people who had Begich as their most preferred candidate at this point, their vote is now transferred to the candidate who is next up on their preference schedule. So right here, 15,000 voters had Begich as their number two at this stage, and 27,000 had Palin as their number two. Some did not rank, so this is a partial preference selection, so their votes are no longer tabulated. So those votes leave the election. After this eliminated stage right here, we see that Peltola had 91,000 votes, a majority, and Palin had 85,000. So Peltola won. So again, this is a kind of a very important election that just recently happened, and this is how the plurality with elimination method works. It's very important to know how it works or have a good feeling for the stages of it, because I think it's going to be a popular method of election and will be popular on referendums moving forward. So let's conclude this lecture video with a little bit of practice using the plurality with elimination method. So I'm using the same election that we had before with candidates A, B, C, and D. And what I would like you to do is calculate the complete ranking using the plurality with elimination method. I will pause. You should take some time to try out, and then I'll describe the solution below. All right. Hopefully everyone had some good practice right here for tabulating the results of this particular election. So when we're doing plurality with elimination, what we want to do is first, we should know what the majority threshold for that election is, right? That's a very important number to know, because once one voter has the majority of the votes, the election ends. So in this election, there are 71 voters, making the majority threshold 36. If I look through all the candidates, none of them have the majority. Candidate C has 27 votes. That's not a majority. Candidate A has 15 first place votes. That's not a majority. B has 20 first place votes, not a majority, and D only has 9 first place votes, which again is not a majority. In fact, candidate D has the fewest amount of first place votes. So what we need to do is eliminate D from the election. What this is going to mean in practice is that these 9 people who voted D in first place, their vote is going to be transferred to A. But that's also going to make A the second preference right here. So this can be a little bit confusing. So what I like to do is just sort of rewrite the preference schedule at this point. So I'm going to unveil that quickly right here. All right. So what I've done in this table right here is I've taken the preference schedule above and I've eliminated D from every single column. And then every candidate that was below D, I pushed them up 1 spot in the preference schedule. So in this column right here, right, all of these voters had D as their second preferred candidate. So that means that B becomes the second preferred and A becomes the third preferred. And we see that in this column. So now it's C is preferred to B is preferred to A. We do this for each column. So D is removed right here. So A is preferred to B. C moves up to third place in this column. And then A moves up to first place in this column right here as D was eliminated. So it may be, you might not have to do, this might not be necessary amounts of work to do, but if you just kind of create a new table and tabulate the new election with a candidate removed, then you can start the next step of a plurality with elimination election. So if we follow our advice above, we've now eliminated D, so we should recount the total number of first place votes. After doing that, what we'll see is that candidate C has 27 first place votes, B has 20, and A has 24 first place votes. The majority is 36, so no candidate has a majority of the first place votes. This means we have to eliminate the candidate with the fewest amount of first place votes, so we have to eliminate B from the election. So that means B is going to be eliminated from each of these ballots. If we do this, I can unveil the results right here. After eliminating B from this election, we're going to just recount all the first place votes. So we remove B, we move everyone up 1 slot. That needs to be moved up 1 slot. And now we calculate who got the most first place votes. Only A and C are remaining. And right here, we see that C gets 27 votes right here. And I believe that the remaining 44 all end up going to candidate A. If we observe down here, candidate C, well, very popular with 27 voters, is extremely unpopular with the rest of the voters. So the way things that unfold in this case is that candidate A has the most amount of first place votes. So candidate C has 27 first place votes, candidate A has 44 votes, a majority, and candidate A wins. So candidate A is the winner under plurality with elimination. And our complete ranking is as follows. A was first place, C made it to the last round, so they're second place. B was eliminated in the second stage, so they're third place. And D was eliminated in the fourth place. So they are fourth place. They're going to be last place in this election. So that is how you can do a calculation which involves finding out who is the winner under a plurality with elimination election. All right, stay posted. In the next video, we'll be talking about fairness in elections.